Thank you for joining You Deserve Grace is a financial platform dedicated to helping you discover your version of rich. My name is Grace Vela. Today we're talking about a starting point, starting the new year off right. We've got a 4-week series that's going right now about helping you manage your finances and helping you discover your version of rich. And so a lot of times when it's the beginning of the year, we come up with New Year's resolutions. There's a lot of self-help books out there that we read. I know a popular one is about, habits of millionaires. And so some people may say, okay, this is the year I'm getting my finances off right. And so they'll start reading a book like that, or, whatever top 25 habits or whatever. They'll start reading something like that and then start following what's in those books to try to get a better understanding of themselves and try to drive those habits, right? As a way to kind of start off the year. And I think that's great. And I think that's wonderful. Because at the end of the day, when you don't have an internal guide, it's better to copy, right? It's better to mock, it's better to mimic, than to do nothing at all. Because sometimes, and the reason why some strategies work for some people and don't work for others is because the ones they read might speak to their inner child, right? So something may work for one person and absolutely drive no change in someone else. And a big part of that is because it just, the way it's written, the way it speaks, the pieces that it touches on really reflect more of what's in their heart. And so, as we get started on this 4-week series, I love that line, money can't buy happiness. And I don't know. I think it depends. I won't address that. But what I do want to address is values as their starting point. And that's really what the first week would dive into if you're taking our 4-week course, is how values are a starting point in understanding your own values and your own drivers. And the reason values are a starting point is because, yes, money can't buy happiness, but it can bring you closer to understanding yourself, right? Understanding what are your drivers, to understanding what are your fears. It helps you safeguard yourself against your fears, right? Some of us don't even know we're driven by our fears, and that's that's how we use money. It helps you with your identity. Sometimes it helps us reflect the identity that we want, and that's where it can drive happiness. And other times, if the identity that it does drive is incongruent with what we want internally, that's when we have a hard time with money. And that's when money doesn't drive happiness, is that incongruency in who we feel we are. And so sometimes when you say things like I'm broke, or my money isn't enough, or I've got so much money and I've been working so hard and yet I feel like I'm not where I want to be, that's usually a reflection that our values are not congruent with how we're using our money. That's usually an indicator that our values are not being used, our money, is not being used to drive who we are and who we see ourselves as. And maybe rather our money is being used, we're using our money, right? That's that personal reflection. We're using our money to drive someone else's goal, or to meet someone else's vision of who we are. And it's not congruent with who we are. And so sometimes that's where we get that disconnect with money. And so, for those of you who aren't taking the course and you're just watching the video, I would, as a Christian-based money coach, I would recommend you take a deep dive into the book of Ecclesiastes as you start the year. I know a lot of Christians are like, oh, don't read Ecclesiastes, it's depressing, or, it may discourage people, but I really think the opposite is true. Ecclesiastes is such it's a good, end of life self-reflection. When you understand that, Solomon really had a troubled childhood, and, as a child, all he ever wanted was for his dad really to love his mom. And as an adult, all he ever wanted was, to fulfill his father's legacy, but to also have a relationship with his siblings. And, those are the types of things that he some of them he achieved, some of them he couldn't. And, when he did achieve some of them, they didn't feel the same way. They didn't hit right with him. And so a lot of it is his own reflections, and it speaks. It's a timeless truth. It speaks. And so that's why I'd recommend, as you start the year, first thing, whether you're a Christian or not Christian, grab the book of Ecclesiastes. It's 12 chapters. I'm not going to tell you to read and reflect on a chapter a week, because some people are fast readers and they can get through something really quick, and other people really take their time. But what I want you to do when you're reading this book of Ecclesiastes, pick a version that's written in the closest English to you, or whatever language you speak, but something that's common to how you express yourself. Don't pick a translation that doesn't speak to you. There's so many different versions that you can try. So depending on the type of English you speak and the type of English you commonly read, try the different versions until you get to one that is more natural to you. And the reason being, that's going to allow you to just read it and to reflect. And what I want you to catch more so when you're reading that is which parts speak to you, which part gives you pause. When you read something and it grates you, or you vehemently disagree with it, I want you to reflect on why does that, why do I not agree with that? And one of the important things that they cover in counseling a lot of times is that it's important to share your thoughts with someone, because sharing helps you reduce the shame associated with some of what you're feeling, if it is shame. And then sharing also helps you reflect. And so if you have a chance and you have someone that you can share as you read with, or even after you've read, do that, right? Go over some of the things you've read with someone else. If you're married and you're thinking about doing this as a journey, as a couple, I recommend you do the reflection with someone else that's not your spouse. And the big reason of that is a lot of times we ask our spouse to be the victim, the judge, the jury, to be all of our things at the same time. And so you may read something without the lens of criticizing them or judging them, but then they may reflect on it as that way. And so really look for a third party to bounce some of these ideas off of and to read this with. Even if it's a coworker, or if you're reading on the bus and something comes up, just talk to the stranger beside you and just be like, I was just reading this, right? And this is what I kind of thought, or what do you think of this? Because one of the key things that was really good about Ecclesiastes is it shows you that you're not the first to feel the same way that you feel about your money. It touches on generational wealth. It touches on our use of our time. It touches on debt. It touches on everything, really, everything under the sun, if I could say that. And so that's why I think it's a really good place for you to start on your reflections for this year as you're preparing on your financial journey. Now, if you're single, you may think, that's even harder to find someone to talk to, but you're actually in a really privileged situation where it's 100% on you. So for sure, same thing, look for a third party to kind of walk through the book with, read with, even if you're reading on your own. And once again, you have a friend. And the good thing about Ecclesiastes is it's such a casual foray into finances, right? It's not like, let's sit down and talk about money. There's a casualness in it, in the way that it discusses money, that it should make it more comfortable for you to kind of open up and have that discussion. Because a big part of this journey and in the year is about accountability. Having someone that you can talk to about money. I think that's the biggest change, and that's the biggest challenge that I'm going to ask you to do this year as you look at reflecting on your money and making changes, is creating a system for yourself as we go through this. Now, a lot of people will reach out to clinical psychologists and counseling, and a lot of counselors aren't equipped to deal with the financial side, and so they'll send you to a financial advisor and say, go discuss this with them. And a lot of financial advisors aren't prepared to discuss the clinical side of it, because they really do need to feed their families, and are looking to see where they can meet you in terms of where a product that they have will meet your needs, right? So they are still looking at your needs and looking to meet your needs, but that's really the end goal, not sitting there listening to you talk about the visions and the goals that the 6-year-old version of you had, because really it is that inner child that helps to drive our values, whether we like it or not. That's where they started quite a while back. And so, you know, for more videos on identity and values and self, we've got some on our channel here at Deserve Grace. So subscribe to our channel. Thank you for listening. And as we start this journey on the 4-week course, if you want to sign up for the course, go to our website, deservegrace.com, to sign up for the 4 sessions on starting your new year right. Take care and have a wonderful day.